Good afternoon, Las Vegas. This is Megan Barth with ReaganBaby.com, and it's Thursday, and that means I have this seat until 4 o'clock, and then Wayne Allen Root comes in and goes to war on your behalf, but I'll be going to war on your behalf for the next hour, and then when Wayne joins us at 4, he and I will sit down and talk about the news of the day, and God, there is a lot going on out there that we need to talk about. But you can check me out on ReaganBaby.com. That's where my writing, as well as other contributors, post. Great political commentary there. If you want to message me, you can do so at Megan@ReaganBaby.com, on Twitter, Reagan_baby, or on Facebook on my Reagan Baby fan page. But let's get down to some nitty gritty, all right? Unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable that we have aligned ourselves as a country with a terrorist group, Hamas, which is an of and for the Palestinians. For the first time in history, and you know this administration is always about making history. Even if they're on the wrong side of it, they're going to make it. And John Kerry's speech yesterday about the Security UN resolution and how somehow this resolution aligns with our American values. Now, maybe the values of a Marxist, like the Barack Obama administration and those within it. Because you tell me how aligning ourselves with Hamas is going to somehow be a peaceful resolution to a two-state solution in the Middle East. John Kerry, in a speech yesterday, which we'll go to a cut in just a second, says that Israel is just going to keep building settlements, and they have no interest in a two-state solution. Well, why doesn't John Kerry educate me? Because I'm open to be educated. When have the Palestinians ever advocated for a two-state solution? You know, under this Barack Obama administration, in the last 8 years, the tagline of the Democrat National Committee should be F you, Israel. That should be the slogan. The progressives, and the DNC, once again, turned their backs on Israel in favor of an authoritarian regime run by Hamas. They did this in Libya. They overthrew the Libyan government, overthrew Gaddafi. They overthrew Abbas, who was a friend to Israel in Egypt. And they welcomed in the Muslim Brotherhood and told us into Egypt and told us, this is what democracy looks like. No, actually, that's what terror looks like. It wasn't too long ago that Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, and her lovely daughter, Chelsea, stood arm in arm with Yasser Arafat and praised Yasser Arafat. Now, under Yasser Arafat's reign, as well as the future leaders in quote-unquote Palestine, they teach their children to kill Jews. And John Kerry had the audacity to compare a Palestinian education to an Israeli education. Now, a Palestinian education begins in kindergarten, whereby they take the young, the impressionable kids and create future martyrs. Instead of studying math and science and history, etc., they study effective ways to kill Jews. Stab, stab, stab the Jews. If you just go to YouTube and Google Palestinian kindergarten, you'll find lessons there that are horrific. Now, if you go and Google Israeli education, you can see Arabs and Israelis and everybody and all these young kids studying together, learning English and math and science and the basics. And so I sit here completely dumbfounded on how there could be any Jewish person out there who remains a registered Democrat. have a quick question. Are you suffering from Stockholm Syndrome? Have you been kidnapped by an ideology where you can't even see the truth anymore? Have you been kidnapped by the Democrat Party whereby you have been blinded by this ideology that you can't even see how the U.S. turned its back on your homeland? Let's go to John Kerry's cut, and I want you to hear. And it's quite a long cut. It's about 2 minutes. We might cut it off in the between, but I want you to pay close attention. And if you're driving, don't listen to with your eyes closed. But if you aren't driving, listen with your eyes closed. And I want to see if you hear what I hear.
My job, above all, is to defend the United States of America, to stand up for and defend our values and our interests in the world. And if we were to stand idly by and know that in doing so we are allowing a dangerous dynamic to take hold, which promises greater conflict and instability to a region in which we have vital interests, we would be derelict in our own responsibilities. Regrettably, some seem to believe that the U.S. friendship means the U.S. must accept any policy, regardless of our own interests, our own positions, our own words, our own principles, even after urging again and again that the policy must change. Friends need to tell each other the hard truths, and friendships require mutual respect. Israel's permanent representative to the United Nations, who does not support a two-state solution, said after the vote last week, quote, "It was to be expected that Israel's greatest ally would act in accordance with the values that we share and veto this resolution." I am compelled to respond today that the United States did, in fact, vote in accordance with our values, just as previous U.S. administrations have done at the Security Council before us. They failed to recognize that this friend, the United States of America, that has done more to support Israel than any other country, this friend that has blocked countless efforts to delegitimize Israel, cannot be true to our own values or even the stated democratic values of Israel. And we cannot properly defend and protect Israel if we allow a viable two-state solution to be destroyed before our own eyes.
So he's blaming Israel, an ambassador from Israel, who says, and John Kerry says that this ambassador, I believe it was, doesn't believe in a two-state solution. But again, let me take you back to the words of Yasser Arafat. "We plan to eliminate the state of Israel and establish a purely Palestinian state. We will make life unbearable for Jews by psychological warfare and population explosion. We Palestinians will take over everything, including all of Jerusalem." And let's not forget this little honey that Yasser said, best friends with Hillary Clinton and the Clintons. "Peace for us means the destruction of Israel. We are preparing for an all-out war, a war which will last for generations." Does that sound like the Palestinians want a two-state solution? Now, I don't know, but I did sales for quite a while in my life. And when you sat down at a table with somebody that you were going to negotiate with, you at least had some sort of foundation from where you could negotiate. How are you supposed to negotiate with terrorists who were once led by Yasser Arafat, who in their charter calls for the destruction of Israel and the Israelis? How does that charter align with our American values? And I would love to hear from you. You can call toll free and I would love to hear from a Jewish Democrat voter. Actually, I want to know if you're betrayed. I want to know if you're going to remain a registered Democrat. I want to know if you support this new record-breaking stance, history-making stance that the U.S. has taken against Israel. You can call toll free, 844-263-8232, 844-263-8232. Nevada. And, you watch the exit of Barack Obama, whereby he had promised Donald Trump and the American people that there would be a peaceful transition of power. Now, anybody that fell for that ruse didn't understand exactly who Barack Obama is and what they were dealing with. Because a despot, a community organizer, never seeks peace. He's not there to create harmony. He's not there to provide a peaceful transition of power. He has been trained in agitation, disruption, and chaos. And this latest move, the backstabbing of Israel, is just another attempt to throw another bomb in the middle of the Middle East and in the middle of the transition to a Donald Trump presidency, thereby making it more difficult for Donald Trump to execute his goals in the first 100 days as president and creating a more dangerous world for Donald Trump to deal with. And again, I'd love to hear from you out there, because I could go on and on about this betrayal of Israel. And we'll cover a little bit more from some sound bites from Hannity last night, from Kimberly Guilfoyle, from one of the ambassadors from Israel, who believes and who guarantees us that they have irrefutable proof that the U.S. was behind this security resolution and behind those in the UN who despise Israel. Once our ally, now we're going to have to wait for Trump in order to get back in Netanyahu's good graces. And Netanyahu is very happy that Donald Trump will be our next president on January 20th. And I believe there are a whole lot of Democrats out there that are happy about it, too. This is Megan Barth with ReaganBaby.com, filling in for War. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to War. This is Megan Barth with ReaganBaby.com, filling in for the capitalist evangelist warrior, Wayne Allen Root. He's going to join me and take over his show at 4 o'clock, and then he and I will sit for about a half an hour and talk the talk, walk the walk. But every Tuesday and Thursday, I have this seat from 3 to 4 so he can get his workout in. I mean, the guy's 55, looks 45. He's great, and he doesn't stop. Constant forward motion. But I'm curious to see what he has to say about this latest UN resolution. And, without the U.S., the UN would not exist. We support $3 billion to fund this network that is just full of Jew haters, quite frankly, despotic regimes. And for us now to align ourselves, not with Israel, but with the Jew haters, is abhorrent. But yet John Kerry in that last cut says, well, we've now aligned with U.S. values. Yeah, maybe yours. And unfortunately, you speak for the U.S., but that's going to change real soon. I'm real curious to see who Donald Trump's going to appoint as Secretary of State. Can't be any worse than horseface John Kerry. But last night on Tucker Carlson, Ed Henry was sitting in for Tucker, and he sat with Danny Dannon, who is the ambassador to the UN, and he calls this latest U.S. action directed and possibly drafted by the Barack Obama administration as shameful. Let's go to cut 4.
It's not true. It's not correct. Israel is a Jewish democracy. Today we have more than 1.7 Arab Israelis who are not Jewish, who live in a very strong democracy. So we do not accept that. What we saw now, it was a failed attempt to defend the indefensible. You cannot protect the decision that was made by the administration last Friday when the U.S. actually allowed a one-sided resolution to pass at the UN. So for more than an hour, Secretary Kerry tried to justify what happened at the UN Security Council. I was there in that room. That was a shameful moment, because the U.S. is the closest ally of Israel. We work together. We share the same values. And to see the U.S. voting with Venezuela and other countries that they're all against Israel, it was very disappointing.
Well, they didn't vote with them, they abstained, but by extension,
by abstain, actually, what you said is correct, because usually the U.S. stand with Israel and applying the veto power. It happened in 2011. It happened in 2014. Without the veto, the U.S. blocked the resolution. And now, when the U.S. abstained, all the rest voted to support the resolution, and it passed.
Yeah, and it passed because we sat around and did nothing to stop it. And I looked up this latest bit by Danny Danon, and he is the Israel ambassador to the UN, and he emphasized in an article delivered to Arutz Sheva. It's a Jewish news organization. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, so forgive me. I'm a Gentile, right? Danon added, the Obama administration acted against Israel at the UN, and any claim to the contrary is a distortion of reality. It's absolutely a distortion of reality to claim anything else. You know, Israel, for those that may not understand, kind of the size and the scope, it's as big as Rhode Island. Okay, it's this little democracy in the midst of terrorist countries that surround it. And when Israel sought peace with the Palestinians and tried for the two-state solution years ago, they were met by rocket fire and mortars and suicide bombers and stabbings. So for John Kerry to sit on the international stage and say that someone from Israel doesn't want a two-state solution, thereby we're going to backstab Israel. Well, tell me, what Palestinian, John, did you find that wants a two-state solution? Because that's exactly who we've aligned ourselves with. And I truly think that this latest anti-Semitic action taken by the Barack Obama administration, one of many, are going to come back and bite them in the butt. Because I think, and I do hope, that a lot of Jewish voters out there who historically vote Democrat will think twice at the ballot box next time. Much like many of the union supporters, union workers, and working men of this country thought twice about voting for a Democrat. Those in the Rust Belt. Those that said, Obamacare really stinks. My costs are going up. I can't see my doctor. This economy really stinks. I can only work 30 hours because of Obamacare, or I can't find work. The Democrats turned their backs on the working men and women in the Rust Belt and now have turned their backs on the Jews. And I do hope that this affects some of their base. But you wonder if they're smart enough, or even if they have, or if they have too much hubris to take any accountability for their actions in order to clean up their house and get it in order after the shellacking they've took, not only on the national stage with the presidency, but House seats and Senate seats and governorships. Bleeding. The Democrat Party is absolutely bleeding to death. But now the rumor is that they might elect or nominate Keith Ellison to head the DNC. And in a way, I kind of hope they do. Because that will be like the final act. Like they might as well just get all of their supporters, rent out a big, garage and close the door and turn on the car. Because that will be political suicide. And we'll be right back with that after this next break. This is Megan Barth with ReaganBaby.com, going for war on your behalf and on Wayne Allyn Roots. We'll return after this break. Thanks. Welcome back. This is Megan Barth with ReaganBaby.com, filling in for Wayne Allyn Root. He'll be here in about a half an hour, and then he and I will discuss some topics of the day, and then he'll take over his show. But every Tuesday and Thursday, I take over this mic from 3 to 4 Pacific time and talk to you about the latest news, such as I have been talking about the last half an hour of how the Barack Obama administration has betrayed our closest and oldest ally of Israel. And we shouldn't expect anything different from a community organizer. Okay, so this whole peaceful transition of power was just a bunch of talk. Because Barack Obama was trained at a very early age by communists and by the likes of Saul Alinsky. And his job as a community organizer is to agitate, create chaos and division in order to grow in power, accumulate power, and grow the size of government. And we've seen that he's done really well at growing the size of government these last 8 years. The accumulation of power centralized in D.C. is why the American people came up and tossed him out on his ear and elected a non-politician, a businessman who understands that the government needs to get out of people's way so they can provide for their families, so they can hold down a job, so they aren't threatened by the bigger government, the agencies. You know, Barack Obama weaponized his agencies and used the agencies against the American people, whether it was the Department of Health and Human Services through Obamacare, or whether it was the EPA passing down erroneous regulations onto working men and women. And the list goes on and on. And now this peaceful transition of power has now been interrupted by a global betrayal of Israel. And the fools in the Democrat National Committee and the Democrat Party, the progressives, believe that they can save their behinds from the legacy of Barack Obama and the failed candidacy of Hillary Clinton by not only turning their back on Israel, but electing or nominating someone like Keith Ellison to head their party. Now, if you go over to theheavy.com, there is an article there from November 16th entitled Keith Ellison Controversies, 5 Fast Facts You Need to Know. Now, if you're a thinking Democrat out there, which I believe there are some left that haven't been blinded by this ideology, you should probably take a read. It says Minnesota Congressman Keith Ellison may become the next chair of the Democrat National Committee. Many progressive groups have suggested Keith Ellison, and Ellison has now been officially endorsed by Chuck Schumer, Elizabeth Warren, and the other socialist Bernie Sanders. Now, I added the other socialist. Others have suggested a more moderate and conventional choice. But why be moderate and conventional? Why not just go full-blown Marxist, anti-Semite? Why not? Since Ellison's name came up as the potential DNC chair, some past controversies of his have been raised. For example, as a student, he defended Nation of Islam leader Louis Farrakhan. Yes, he did. Here's a couple quotes by Louis Farrakhan. The Jews, a small handful, control the movement of this great nation, like a radar controls the movement of a great ship in the waters. The Jews got a stranglehold on the Congress. Farrakhan also warned in a Madison Square Garden speech in 1985 that when God puts you in the ovens, you're there forever. Now, when Ellison was a student at the University of Minnesota Law School, he wrote several articles for the Minnesota Daily that defended Farrakhan, saying that he's not an anti-Semite. No. He just must be misunderstood. And when Ellison was running for Congress, it was also revealed that Ellison had worked with the Nation of Islam for about 18 months. Now, when all of this came to light, and see, this is what the Democrats tend to forget. The internet is forever. and we can get information wherever. It's not like whatever you say is going to be forgotten the next day. No, it's forever. So when all of these controversies came up during his congressional campaign, Allyn immediately, all of a sudden, just immediately repudiated Farrakhan in a letter to the Jewish Community Relations Council in Minneapolis. And he said that he just simply didn't properly scrutinize Farrakhan's views at the time. Really. This is about proper scrutiny. I just read you 2 quotes. Do you need any more time than maybe the last 3 seconds to figure out that Farrakhan is an anti-Semite? But Allyn is a Muslim. He took his oath on the Quran. Now he says, well, it was Thomas Jefferson's Quran, and that was just, that the founders, just embraced all religions, so he was going to use Thomas Jefferson's Quran. Wrong. Allyn, I believe, practices taqiyya, which means that you lie. If you're a Muslim, you're not supposed to lie, but if you need to lie in order to defend your beliefs from the infidel, then you lie. And so the Democrats want to double down on stupid, which I say, please do. If the Republican Party can't destroy you, then let us get out of the way so you can destroy yourselves. And I truly believe that in a Donald Trump presidency, and we're already seeing this, right? He isn't even president, and companies are vowing to create jobs here or bring back jobs through repatriation. Sprint, in the latest news, is bringing back 5,000. Carrier kept their 1,000. Ford kept their plant in Kentucky to build the Lincoln SUV instead of shipping that to Mexico. IBM has promised jobs here. We have Japanese investors investing $50 billion to create 50,000 jobs. And so as government acts, corporations and people react. And so if government is going to regulate companies nearly out of business here through bad trade policies or regulations, of course they're going to take their manufacturing facilities elsewhere. But if the government, under a capitalist, a free marketeer for a change, like Donald Trump, gets government out of the way and is actually friendly to American corporations, as well as other corporations and American workers, they are going to respond accordingly. And like I said, Donald Trump is not even president, and companies and people are reacting in a positive manner. Do you realize that the Consumer Confidence Index, something that we didn't even talk about for 8 years because it didn't really exist, it didn't show up on the charts, is at the highest it's been in 15 years. Christmas was a good Christmas for many. A lot of spending going on. That's called confidence. That means people are seeing, and I hate this word, but hope. I never used to I shouldn't say hate. It's just such an empty, vacuous word. But people are seeing a change that they truly can believe in. They are feeling more confident. They are feeling more secure. They believe that a Donald Trump presidency is going to be better for them and their families, by where for a change, they can keep more money in their pocket to spend on their needs instead of sending their money to the black hole in Washington. So Barack Obama and his progressive elites can continue their globalist quest on building governments and opening borders. And, George Soros, that name is thrown around quite a bit. Well, that little lurch came out from under the rock he was hiding under and wrote an article. And basically saying that Donald Trump is a dictator and fascism has made a comeback And we got to get to this George Soros article after this next break, so stay tuned. You aren't going to want to miss it. This is Megan Barth filling in for Wayne Allyn Root, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Megan Barth with ReaganBaby.com, going to war on your behalf and Wayne Allyn Root's behalf, but he's going to join me at the 4 o'clock hour and take over his show, because every Tuesday and every Thursday I'm in this seat from 3 to 4, and I know that he has listeners across the country, so I'm going to give you a toll-free number if you'd like to call in, because I'll take a couple calls, and we do have a couple in the queue. 1-844-263-8232, 844-2-NEVADA. Now, before we went to break, I told you that George Soros had climbed out from under the rock he was living under. But let's keep in mind who George Soros is. He is one of the biggest financiers of the DNC. He has approximately 190 501c3 to C4 organizations in this country. He considers himself a progressive. Okay, which basically means that he hates this country and everything that we stand for. And he uses his money and his 501c3 agencies in order to undermine our Democrat Republic. And again, we are a democratic republic. We are not a democracy. Okay, that's the huge difference. But Democrats always want to talk about democracy. Okay, if we truly lived in a democracy and Hillary Clinton claims that she won the popular vote, then we'd, God forbid, have Hillary Clinton as president, but thankfully our founders were wise enough to establish the Electoral College to protect us from the despots like Hillary Clinton and her financier, George Soros. So George Soros comes out in project-syndicate.org is the website. Never heard of it. Project-syndicate.org. And he basically wants to warn us that his open society, now his foundation, the largest foundation that he has is called the Open Society Foundation, the OSF. And that is truly a progressive globalist dream whereby there aren't any borders. People can just come and go as they please. F sovereignty. Forget it. People should just be able to move the 6 billion people to anywhere they want. Bring their cultures with them. Diversity over safety. We're just one big melting pot. And oh, by the way, someone else is going to pay for it. So George Soros finally comes out and he basically introduces himself to the audience by saying, I'm an 86-year-old Hungarian Jew who became a U.S. citizen after the end of World War II. I learned at an early age how important it is what kind of political regime prevails. The formative experience of my life was the occupation of Hungary by Hitler's Germany in 1944. I probably would have perished had my father not understood the gravity of the situation. Listen to this. He arranged false identities for his family and for many other Jews. With his help, most survived. Now, he forgets to leave out this important little fact. Okay, and that little fact is that because his identity was changed, he could turn over other Jews, which he did willingly to the SS at the age of 14. And when George Soros was questioned about this by 2020, and I forget the reporter's name, but you could just Google 2020 George Soros interview. The interviewer says, well, George, don't you have any guilt for turning over your fellow Jews? And George says, nah, not really, no. He goes, okay, so you don't have any now. Did you have any then? And George Soros basically says, nah, no. I'm basically fine with it. So he turned over his fellow Jews to the SS, and he is going to lecture us on some sort of kindness that's supposed to evolve out of this progressive, open society. And he goes on in the article, and he goes on and on. It's a very long article filled with like long words, etc. And he says that his education and his philosophy was formed out of one of his teachers at the London School of Economics called Karl Popper. Well, I had heard of Karl Popper, but I had never really knew who Karl Popper was. So I Googled Karl Popper, and up pops another wealth of information. Like, the Democrats don't think that, we have this information at our fingertips. And that's why I love this microphone, because I can share this information with you. You can find it on your own, and you also give me an education, too. So listen to this. Popper left school at the age of 16 and attended lectures in mathematics, physics, philosophy, psychology, and the history of music as a guest student in Vienna. Popper became attracted by Marxism and subsequently joined the Association of Socialist School Students. He also became a member of the Social Democratic Workers' Party of Austria, which was at the time a party that fully adopted the Marxist ideology. Geez, isn't that strange? In his early years, Popper was impressed by Marxism, whether of communists or socialists. An event that happened in 1919 had a profound effect on him. This is Karl Popper. During a riot caused by the communists, the police shot several unarmed people, including some of Popper's friends, when they tried to free party comrades from prison. The riot had, in fact, been part of the plan by which the leaders of the communists with connections to Bela Kun tried to take power by a coup. Popper did not know about this at the time, supposedly. However, he knew that the riot instigators were swayed by the Marxist doctrine that class struggle would produce vastly more dead men than the inevitable revolution, brought about as quickly as possible, and so he had no scruples to put the life of the rioters at risk to achieve their selfish goal of becoming the future leaders of the working class. So George Soros's ideology was transformed or created or influenced by a Marxist. George Soros is the premier financier of the DNC. And he's trying to call Donald Trump a Nazi when he himself turned his fellow Jews over to the Nazis. Are you starting to make all the connections here, folks? Yeah, I'm happy to do it for you. Wayne and I will be back after this break, so stay tuned. Don't go anywhere.
And screw up the new president, Donald Trump.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what a community organizer does. He's been trained in agitation. He's been trained in chaos. He's been trained on crisis and how to divide. And so this peaceful transition of power that we were promised by the Richard, I call him the Richard.
I got that.
Okay.
For Richard the Lion-Hearted or something?
No, just shorten Richard. What's the nickname of Richard?
Oh, I get it. Okay,
yeah,
got it.
Yeah, Richard Head. So
Barack Obama is Richard Head? Is that the deal? Okay. Richard Head. I like it.
Good. But you look and you just named off, half a dozen to 10 things that he's done just in the last few weeks.
Last few days.
Well, combine that with
Russia was the last few days.
Right.
Israel was the last few days. Nevada and Utah.
Well, that
monuments
was the
last few days.
Right. But the last week it was, no ban on drilling. The week before that, it was the Russian refugees.
And then it was the regulations, massive regulations.
Right.
Don't forget the pardons.
Right, the pardons have been ongoing.
And then don't forget that Judicial Watch just announced today that the 8-year travel costs of Obama are now over $96 million. So him and
there was
Michelle
$85 million at the just a couple weeks ago.
Well, now
so
it's 96.
Now it's 96 because of their latest vacation.
Yes.
I'm sure. Yeah, but the final tab, I'm sure, will roll in.
It'll be well over $100 million, obviously.
Right, and so we have to expect this from a community organizer to create as much death and destruction on his way out. Like I said, he's already poured the gasoline over this country as well as the rest of the world stage, and he's going to light a match as he leaves our White House in order to disrupt and divert and try to sabotage the Donald Trump transition to his presidency.
But he must know that most of what he's doing, if not all of it, will be easily reversed the minute Donald Trump gets in office. What is the point of this? This is a 5-year-old going, nah, I stole your marbles. not understanding that the guy's got a meat cleaver in his hand. He's going to knock you unconscious and steal your marbles back. You're gaining nothing. You're looking like a petulant, sore loser child. That's Obama. I mean, this is crazy.
Well, I can't remember which law that he, and maybe you have it in front of you, but in taking away 1.5 million acres from Nevada and Utah.
He gave, it was a specific name.
It was a
I can't remember.
law,
Yeah,
like
I don't
from
remember
1913 or something ancient. Blowed the dust off that one, blew the dust off that one.
So you don't need Congress's approval.
Correct. Right. And so he believes that it is his obligation as
permanent.
president. It's permanent.
And he also believes that the oil banning drill is permanent.
Correct.
I'm sure many of the things he's done he believes are permanent. The only thing I know is permanent is the pardons. Those are certainly permanent. No president can undo a pardon. That would be double jeopardy. No, even I would think that would be cruel. If one president says you're free and the next one goes, you know what? I think you go back for life. I don't really like you. You're a nasty looking.
I didn't like him, and I don't like you, so you're going back to the clink.
So, all right, the pardons are real and they're permanent, but everything else is up for grabs. I don't believe any of it's permanent. I believe Trump will find a way. Remember why I supported Trump for the first day when no one else did for the first day? Because I said I grew up being in real estate and knowing his lawyers in New York and knowing he had the most vicious lawyers in the world that would skin you alive and leave you to die in the desert.
Perfect.
And I always said that that's what you needed to beat the Clintons and to win against voter fraud. And sure enough, he did it. And then they were going to try and undo the Electoral College. His lawyers didn't allow it. Then they were going to try the recount. His lawyers didn't allow it. And I believe that when his lawyers get to work, they will undo everything Obama ever did and erase it like he was never there.
Well, it all comes down to the interpretation of the law, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is how Barack Obama has wielded his power over the last 8 years. It's how the constitutional scholar interprets the law.
The constitutional scholar Richard Head? Is that who you're talking about?
Richard Head.
Okay.
Yeah, Richard Head. It's how he has interpreted the law, and then how he's, of course, going to execute the law based on his interpretation. Well, Donald Trump and his cabinet are going to have a much different interpretation of those laws.
Right. Well, the interpretation will be the Constitution actually works.
Right.
We believe in it.
Yeah. It doesn't
Obama
bend
says,
and
we don't
change
care.
according to our whims.
Obama says there is no Constitution. I don't care.
Right.
All right. So talk about Israel and the situation, the condemnation of Israel in the United Nations that not only was allowed by America abstaining, but more importantly, Israel says they have hard proof that Obama orchestrated the entire thing. No shock, right? No surprise to me.
Not at all. I mean, and I said, are Jews suffering from Stockholm syndrome that are still a registered Democrat after this latest move by this administration?
They don't care.
Why wouldn't they care?
They don't care. Listen, I'm in the Hollywood.
Then why should I care?
I'm in the Hollywood world because Christians like Israel much more than Jews do. That's why. Because Christians understand there's a pact with God. Christians understand that if you allow Israel to fall, America's done. God will take away his favor from America. That's why Christians understand that. Jews don't. Jews don't even believe in the Bible. Jews don't even believe any of that's true. Every Christian I know believes that's true, that God gave his favor to America because we've been good to the Jews, the Jewish people, and the state of Israel, which is the land of the official state of the Jewish people. Simple as that. So that's why
you want to protect the land from the Palestinians who raise their children in order to how to stab.
I do, but I can't speak for my entire tribe. I do.
I know. I don't know what is wrong with your tribe.
Yeah, it's a dysfunctional tribe.
It is completely dysfunctional. Like I said, Stockholm syndrome.
Listen, I have a partner in the TV business who shall remain nameless, who I love and is a great friend. But all he does is send me emails about Trump is Hitler, and I'm like, what? If anyone's Hitler, it's the Democratic Party that's Hitler.
Well, and I was just talking about the George Soros
But nobody's
piece.
Hitler, by the way.
Yeah, I was just talking about the George Soros piece, and I don't know if you saw that. It's on some random website. But he basically goes on to explain that how he was in Hungary and it was being taken over by the Nazis, and Hitler and his dad changed his identity in order to provide him protection. But it also doesn't
He doesn't mention that he turned in Jews.
Correct. Yeah. And so you have someone that actually aligned themselves with the Nazis to turn over the Jews, funding the Democrat Party.
Yeah, he's scum. He's absolute, lint, road dirt, roadkill. Bad guy, George Soros, no question about it. By the way, I saw online, and again, you don't know if what you read online is true or not, but it looked real to me, that Obama did much more than abstain from a UN vote involving Israel. He gave away a large portion of Jerusalem to the Muslims. That's what was written online, that part of this whole thing, part of this UN vote was that there can never be the capital of Israel in Jerusalem because he gave it away. It doesn't belong to Israel anymore.
How can you do that?
I don't know. As part of the UN resolution, somehow that's what it said. But I should have brought it in. I didn't have a chance to print it out, and I'd love to bring an expert on the show to ask. I'm very careful that I never say something happened. I say I read something happen, and I got to verify whether it did or not. But it sounded real to me, and it sure sounds like something Obama would do. But we'll see. We'll see. But I did 5 interviews today, and all 5 interviews, this was the topic. And they let people call in, and 2 or 3 of them, and all the callers were liberals telling me what a great president Obama is to the Jews, that he's been so great, and this is one little thing. This is called delusional rationalization. That's what this is called.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
You can't wrap your mind around the insanity.
All right. There is a lot of insanity in the Democratic Party. It never ceases to amaze me.
Especially if they're going to nominate Keith Ellison. I really hope they do.
I hope they do.
I really hope they do.
Be great.
Oh,
be
it'd be wonderful. Because then if the Republicans can't destroy the Democrat Party, which we've had a difficulty in doing, and destroy their brand,
Democrats
let them destroy themselves.
Right.
I'll just pop the corn.
No, Keith Ellison is every Republican's, how shall I say it, like you say, Richard Head, rainy dream. Every Republican's rainy dream. It's a wonderful thing. I go to bed at night dreaming of Keith Ellison as the head of the DNC. Yeah, you want to win over middle America and get back those angry white males? Let's put a radical Muslim in charge of the Democratic Party.
Perfect.
That'll do it every time.
I know. I couldn't write a better script.
Rainy dream, baby. All right.
Richard Head.
Megan, thank you for taking the hour. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
It's time to take a break. When we get back, we've got Chuck Muth as our guest to talk about the top 10 conservatives. Did you know I made that wonderful list?
I did.
Yeah, Chuck Muth, very nice of him. He's a great guy. And not congratulations, more like Chuck congratulations, because he's a good man, and he should have been on that list. He should have been number 1.
Yeah.
Chuck should be number 1 because he's the most important conservative in this state. In any case, Wayne Allyn, War Now, Megan Barth, wonderful. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy holidays.
Happy MAGA New Year.
And I'll see all of you back here in just a matter of seconds. All right, Wayne Roots, back again. War Now, 790 Talk Now in Las Vegas and 98.1 FM in Palm Springs. Lots of things in the news. We'll get to them after our interview with Chuck Muth, one of the great Nevada conservatives in the world. He makes a list every year of top 10. I'm proud to be on it, but more importantly, number 1 should have been Chuck Muth. Chuck, welcome to the show. You're on with War. How are you?
You know, if I was even half as good at marketing promotion as you are, I would have made myself number 1, Wayne.
You should have. You are number 1 on my list, okay? Just so you know, number 1 on my list. So before we get to the list, I want to go over one thing, and it would help if I had it in front of me. I got so many papers in front of me, I can't find anything, but it's about the new gun law, the gun control law that was just passed, and the fact that Adam Laxalt and the FBI basically say it's dead before it even starts, and I think that's great news, and I assume, here it is, I assume you agree, Nevada's new background check law ends before it begins. That is a good thing, is it not?
Oh, it's a fantastic thing. I mean, nothing's over till it's over. The gun grabbers will never give up, Wayne. You know that. I mean, they're going to come back and try to undo this somehow legislatively once the Nevada legislature reconvenes, in February. I'm sure that'll be high on their list. The Senate Majority Leader Aaron Ford has already said so. But at this point, and this is almost a frightening scenario, with the Democrats controlling the Senate and the Assembly both, they can probably pass this or pass something just like they did with another gun control bill prior to this initiative. At that time, though, Governor Sandoval reluctantly and it took him a long time, but he finally did veto it, and there wasn't the 2/3 supermajority needed to overturn his veto. With Sandoval being a lame duck now, if the Democrats pass this, he might be more inclined to go ahead and sign it this time, or just let it become law without his signature. So gun owners and gun rights advocates should not take this as we won, it's over, because it's anything but over.
All right, and do we have a 2/3 protection? In other words, can it be overridden? Do they have it locked, or they can't get to the 2/3? Where are we right now?
Well, the problem is, they have the majority, but the Democrats do not have a 2/3 majority. They would need to get some Republicans to vote with them to overturn a veto. Unfortunately, for our state, we have some really bad Republicans who are still in office. Some of them are the same rhinos who voted for the largest tax increase in history in the last session. So, it's quite possible that you could have some Republicans who ran saying, they're pro-Second Amendment, they're pro-gun, but would end up turning their backs and stabbing us in the back and voting with the Democrats for this gun control measure under the ridiculous assumption that, it's just for background checks, it's just for safety. It really doesn't take anybody's rights away.
Well, then you and I are going to have to get together and just absolutely defeat them and make sure that they can never, ever, ever lie to the voters again. That's all I can say about that. Matter of fact, last time all this happened, my show is relatively new. This thing only started last February and only got to 3 to 6 p.m. I replaced Mark Levin the day after Labor Day. People forget how new this show is, and it's flying everywhere I go in town, Chuck. Everyone knows me. The garbage truck stopped yesterday and screamed war. The doctor was checking I was in the doctor's office naked. The guy's checking me for skin cancer moles, and I'm naked, and he's going, I listen to your show every day. I love your show. High five me, Wayne. You're the best, War. And I'm laughing. Everyone's listening to the show, and I think now we can use this show with this massive audience, Chuck, to put the pressure on these Republican rhinos that if they dare go against their own propaganda while they were running and or the will of the people that elected them, we are going to throw them out. And I think we have the power to do that now. I just need someone like you to guide me in the right direction, because I'm not the local guy. I try and do national politics, and I try and do national issues, and I'm not an expert on local. So I need you to guide me, but I will help you in any way I can to knock these people out in the next election cycle, because I think that I think we've got the power now to do that. I really do. So we'll try our best.
Yeah, and I know exactly what you're saying, Wayne. It's probably the most gratifying experience that I have doing what I do is when I do run into people out in public and they hear my name. Now, they don't hear me on the radio. They read what I have written, but it's a similar experience where they say, hey, thank you for bringing this to my attention, because most people, most of your listeners, Wayne, they have other things to do in their lives that are more pressing, that are more important. They have jobs, they have families, and they don't really have the time to spend and devote, like you and I do, to the real details of these issues. And if we can crystallize it and just say, hey, here's the bottom line, and here's what you need to do to voice, make sure that your voice is heard, it helps them in a way that they wouldn't be able to do otherwise. And I'm very, very proud of the fact that I'm able to do that, as I know you are too.
Yeah, but again, I'm not the local guy, and you are, and I want you to come on more often and crystallize what are the important issues that people need to pay attention to, especially as the legislature meets. What are the issues that we need to keep the heat and the fire on our legislators with? And I think you're the perfect guy to do that. So be on the lookout for phone calls from my trusty booker, Andrew, to get you on here more often in the future, Chuck. I just want you to know that. So,
right. Well, it's always my honor and pleasure to be on your show, Wayne. So anytime I'm available and you want me, I'm there for you.
All right, thank you. Now let's talk about the important thing, which is your top 10 conservative list. And the great honor that I'm on it is wonderful, but let's talk about all the other people on it. Number 10 is Ira Hansen. Tell everyone why Ira Hansen is on the list. Let's talk about him for a minute.
Ira Hansen is matter of fact, he's a former conservative talk show host like yourself. But he was on the air back in the late 90s, early 2000s, preaching the conservative gospel over the air up in Reno, and then got elected to the state assembly in, I think it was like maybe 2008. Somewhere around about that time. And, in the last legislative session, when we had a Republican majority in the Assembly, the problem was we didn't have a conservative majority, and that's how this tax increase got passed.
Right.
But it didn't, Ira Hansen didn't let it go quietly. He was a very vocal opponent and was willing to speak out publicly and with the press in his opposition to the tax hike. And it's very unusual for a colleague of the same party to actually go against his fellow members of the legislature in primary races. But, Ira Hansen did that in this last election cycle. He had some bad Republicans who voted for the tax hike, and he found some conservative challengers who were willing to run against him in primaries, and he supported them. A lot of it was behind the scenes. Some of it was out in public, but he was very instrumental in defeating a lot of these Republicans who voted for the tax hike, both in the primary and in the general election this year.
He only made one mistake, if my memory serves me correct, wasn't he the actual leader of the Republicans in the Assembly, and they made him step down by claiming he had written something that was racist 30 years ago or something like that, and he actually listened and stepped down and resigned? Am I remembering that correctly?
You're remembering it exactly correctly, and it was very unfortunate. The day after the 2014 election, they ousted the then minority leader, the other Assemblyman, Pat Hickey, and Ira was elected to be who would have been the next Speaker of the Assembly since Republicans had gained the majority. And then, yes, the media and the liberals all threw up some things that he had written in columns and said on the radio that were certainly taken out of context, but they put a lot of pressure on him, and it's what they do to us all the time.
Right.
They call us racist, they call us misogynist, and for whatever reasons, I don't know personally why, he decided that he thought it was in the best interest of the caucus if he stepped down from the leadership position rather than remain as a lightning rod. And that, it's unfortunate that he did, because that allowed John Hambrick to become the Assembly Speaker, and he just rolled over and did whatever Governor Sandoval wanted with these tax hikes.
Yeah, I've met Hambrick many times, and John has to be one of the biggest disappointments I've ever had in politics. I thought he was a great guy, and I thought he was on our side, and I don't understand what happened. Do you have any insight as to how he wound up being so squishy and running to the Sandoval side?
It was as old as time itself, Wayne. It was the desire for power. He had always wanted to seek higher office. He actually wanted to run for the state Senate and was rebuffed by the Senate caucus, and he got the opportunity. He was able to put together the votes that he needed to become the leader of the Assembly, and the price for that was that he had to play ball with Sandoval. That was the only way they were going to support him as being the Speaker of the Assembly, and so he just sold out. I mean, literally sold out for his 30 pieces of silver, and completely forgot about what he had, what we all were led to believe was his conservative bona fides.
Now, is he the minority leader now? Where's Hambrick stand now?
Oh, what goes around comes around. Republicans lost their majority in November, as you know, and just a few days afterwards, the remaining 15 members of the caucus had an election, and they ousted him as the minority leader. So he really has absolutely no power whatsoever in that Assembly caucus now. He went from, at one point he had the smallest office in the Assembly. He went all the way up to the highest height that you can get. He was the Speaker and had the biggest office, and now he's back to being really nothing.
Yeah, he's got a closet again. Who is the minority leader up in Carson City now?
The minority leader now will be Assemblyman Paul Anderson, who is much stronger than Hambrick, and that's bad for conservatives because he's absolutely a mushy moderate. He's absolutely, a tax hiker. He's willing to expand government, and it's unfortunate that there just weren't enough conservatives to keep him from becoming the minority leader. We're still, as conservatives, the minority of the minority now instead of the minority of the majority.
All right, one more quick one before we go to an ad break, and then I'd love you to stay on for a minute. You got another segment for me?
For you, absolutely.
All right, so Jim Marchant. Jim's a friend of mine. He had a fundraiser at my home. I was very honored to have it at my home because I think he's a great guy. I'd love Jim to be the minority leader, to be honest with you. Even though he just got elected, I think he's got the cojones to do what you and I would like to see done. Tell everyone why you put Jim on this list as number 9.
Well, it's an interesting story about Jim that probably most people don't know. After John Hambrick became the Speaker of the Assembly, we actually launched a recall against him because we knew he had sold out on the tax issue. Without fully comprehending just how difficult the legislature has made it to recall a public official in Nevada. I mean, it's almost impossible without really, really, really deep pockets. But at that time when we did that, Jim Marchant stepped up and said, I'm willing to run against him in a recall election to change horses, because it was possible, if the recall had been successful, that we could have ousted Hambrick in the middle of the session, and Jim Marchant would have been able to go in and take his place. So, that set the stage. That's how I met Jim, and I knew he was a good guy. He's a businessman. He's a solid conservative, and he was willing to do his part. Well, when the election time came for this time around, there was already someone else in Hambrick's district who also wanted to run and had the backing of another Assembly leader. So Jim being the guy that he is, said, okay, I'm willing to move and run in a different district. And so he moved into Assemblyman Glenn Trowbridge's district and ran against him in the primary and defeated him in the primary and went on to win a tough race in the general election. So, he's really paid his dues. He's done a great job getting into office, and I, like you, see good things for him in the future as he spends a little bit more time getting to know the lay of the land and getting to know his job.
Yeah, great guy. All right, we'll go through the rest when we get back. We're taking a quick break. My name is Wayne Allyn. The show is W.A.R. Now, 790 Talk Now in Vegas, 98.1 FM in Palm Springs in the Coachella Valley, and soon to be announced after the first of the year, going national, going to be nationally syndicated all over this country, and will be in lots of cities near you. I know so many people are listening to this show streamed online now. We get callers from all over the United States. Soon it's going to be on terrestrial radio all over the United States. We'll be back with more with Chuck Muth, the keeper of the list of Nevada's top 10 conservatives, and really, in my opinion, the finest, most principled conservative activist we've got in this state. He is my hero, belongs to the Conservative Hall of Fame. We'll be right back with more with Chuck Muth. All right, Wayne Allyn Roots, W.A.R. Now, back again. We've got Chuck Muth on the line, one of the great conservative activists in this country, and I believe the leading one in this state. There's no better conservative than Chuck Muth, and I always look to him when I want to know what are the issues that matter, who are the conservatives that get it right. Chuck's the keeper of the top 10 Nevada conservatives list, as well as many other wonderful things that come from Nevada News and Views and CitizenOutreach.com, and we've got him on the line to continue with our top 10 list. Hey, Chuck, how are you?
Doing great.
I assume you agree with me, by the way, that I honestly and fervently believe that Donald Trump won this state fair and square, and there was massive voter fraud of undocumented illegals voting, being registered when they go get their license at DMV, being registered when they get their food stamps at the welfare office, automatically given a voter registration form, never asked if they're a citizen, and they sign up and then they vote. I think that's the whole key to why we're losing elections, but that's a educated gut instinct guess on my part, and I just wanted to hit you with it and see what you thought about that guess.
Well, I still think that the problem with voting isn't so much with fraud on Election Day. And in some cases, Wayne, we just have to be honest and admit that Republicans are just simply outmaneuvered on Election Day. The unions have been building up this get-out-the-vote machine of theirs with Harry Reid's money, for 20 years, and they're just better at it than we are. But the real problem is not requiring photo ID in order to vote, like you have to cash a check or board an airplane or anything else. I mean, that really is a problem out there that people aren't looking at. They're simply looking at, did the electronic machines cast the wrong ballot or something? We need to get away from that.
I agree.
And get back to the real focus on whether or not people who are legally eligible to vote are allowed voting privileges, and people who are not legally eligible to vote are being denied voting privileges. We've got to do something about that to fix the real problem with voting in this country.
Right, agree 110%. I'm looking at my notes for you, and it says right here, government-issued photo ID. And my question to you is, now that we don't have the Assembly, we don't have the State Senate, and we have a wishy-washy governor, there's zero chance of ever passing it, until we change that and flip it again. Zero chance of passing it within the state. But now we got to work on President Donald Trump. There's got to be a way to pass a national, federal photo voter ID law, right?
I agree 100% because it won't happen at the state level unless or until, not only do we get Republicans in the majority in the legislature again, but we get conservative Republicans in the majority in the legislature, and God knows when that, will ever happen again, along with a conservative governor who would sign such a bill. So I'm with you. It's going to have to take place at the federal level, and we do have a Republican in the White House who has made an issue of voting fraud and the problems that we have, and we've got Republicans in the House and the Senate who know that this is a problem for Republicans, and I just hope that they've learned their lessons from 2005, and instead of sitting back and taking it easy and not rocking the boat, that they do what the Democrats would do, which is just go full bore, pass everything you have, and force the Democrats to try to undo it if they ever get control of the Congress back again.
I'm with you, and I've got President Trump's ear. As a matter of fact, I'm honored to say I was just invited to the inauguration and the presidential ball on the friends and family list of the president-elect of the United States, and I thank Donald Trump for that. I was thrilled to get that. And I'm going to bring up to Donald my number one goal in the next 4 years is to pass federal voter ID, including photo, just like Mexico. Isn't that ironic? In Mexico, they not only have voter ID, government issued with photo, but with fingerprint on the ID. And you got to match fingerprints or you can't vote. Did you know they did that in Mexico, Chuck?
I didn't, but I'll agree with you and note also the irony of the fact that it is organized labor who primarily supports Democrats in this country. But whenever you have a union election, you have to produce photo ID before you can vote in a union election. So it's a requirement for the unions, and yet they oppose it as a national requirement for voting for elected officials.
Heck, it's a requirement when I go to the airport for a quick business flight to L.A. and I buy a $3 bottle of water and I whip out my Visa card and it's $3 and the girl behind the counter goes, ID, please, photo ID. Everything I do, they say photo ID, please. So it's ludicrous that the one thing you can't apply it to is voting because it makes you racist. Really? The girl behind the counter, when she asked me for the ID for a $3 bottle of water, is she being a racist when she asked me for it? Unbelievable. All right, let's continue with the topic.
And just to take that a step further,
yeah.
I'm exactly with you. You need to show a photo ID to check into a hotel. Now,
right.
Years ago, I took my son to Legoland in California, and they have a little kiddie racetrack, and when you get off, they give you a little paper card that says driving school from Legoland. Well, I went and got a little one of those photographs of myself and laminated this ID, and when I go to a hotel or in other places, whenever I'm asked for ID, I show them that Lego card. And I'll tell you, Wayne, I swear, probably 7 or 9 times out of 10, they'll accept it. They never even look at it. So even if we require photo ID at the voting booth, we're still going to have to be vigilant in making sure that they actually check it and that the IDs are legitimate.
I don't know if you saw my column in the RJ like a month ago, maybe 6 weeks ago, where I brought up this issue, and I said I did a little research and a little digging on my own, and I believe I found there were 18 or 19 states that require either serious voter ID or photo ID. And in those states, Donald Trump won like 17 out of 19, I believe is the number I came up with, which just goes to show you it works. And that's why Democrats are so scared of it. And after I wrote that article, I will tell you, not only did I get more hate mail than I've ever gotten for a column in the RJ, but I even got a letter from a sitting Las Vegas councilman who was irate at me and said, I'm sick of you bringing up topics like this. You have no proof. You have no right to bring it up. There was no fraud of any kind in the election. That's when you know you've got them. When they're that irate, it's because they know what you know, that they're winning elections with fraud. It's as simple as that. So,
yeah. And they don't know whether or not people are voting illegally because you're not allowed to take the immigration rolls and match them against the driver's license rolls and match them against the voting rolls to make sure that no one who is here illegally has a voter ID card. I mean, until you can actually do the investigation and make sure that people in this country illegally don't also possess a voting card, this problem's going to continue. So we got to be. I'm with you. The only way to fix it is at the federal level. It's got to be national in scope because it does affect national elections.
All right. Well, I'm going to whisper in Donald's ear for 4 years in a row. I will be relentless. You know, I wrote that book, The Power of Relentless. I'm going to be relentless that Donald Trump has to understand the reason he lost the popular vote and the reason he lost my beloved Nevada is because of illegals voting, and the issue is only solved with government-issued photo ID, just like Mexico. That's the way to sell it to America, just like Mexico. We got to do the same thing that Mexico does. If it's good enough for the Mexicans, it should be good enough for Mexicans in the United States to not complain that it's racist. Never heard anything so stupid in my life or so silly or outrageous in my life. All right, just to continue quickly with the list, we don't have much time, but Al Kramer's number 8, Danny Tarkanian, who I love, is number 7. Dan Schwartz, who did a great job with school choice and the vouchers, is number 6. Ron Connect, who's a wonderful controller, a great guy. You have great taste, all good. Number 4 is Wayne Allyn. We don't have to say a word about him. We all know him. Number 3 is Adam Laxalt. So you think Adam is going to be running for governor? Is that the idea?
I don't know that he's going to. I just hope that he does. When you look at Nevada's elected officials, they're populists, they're moderates, they're rhinos, at the top levels of government for the most part. And Adam Laxalt is unique in that he is both electable, Obviously, he's in office, but he's actually an unapologetic conservative. He's a huge states' rights guy, as we've seen in the short time he's been in office. He's sued the federal government on a number of issues, a number of occasions. He's won a number of those, which shows that if you fight back, sometimes you can win. What was it? It was a great hockey player, Wayne Gretzky, who once said, "You miss 100% of the shots you never take."
You don't take, right.
And that's the problem with Republicans, and that's why people have been frustrated with Republicans for so many years under Barack Obama, is they never took a shot. Instead of bringing a tough issue up for a vote, they never took the shot. They just let it go. Adam Laxalt's not like that. He's been a great attorney general already in just 2 short years in office, and I think he would make an excellent governor for the state, following in the footsteps of his great-grandfather.
All right, I'm with you. Number 2 was Charles Munoz and Michael McDonald for running the Trump campaign in the state. Now, some think that's an odd choice only because they did a great job in the caucus, obviously, but Trump didn't win the state. So to laud them when they didn't win the state, the question is, in your opinion, they still did a great job, yes?
Oh, absolutely. Look, they were able to hand Donald Trump, not so much McDonald because he was a little bit more neutral. He was always a supporter, but in his role as state chairman, he had to be neutral in the primary. But he was always a supporter of Donald Trump, and he made sure Trump got a fair deal. But Donald Trump won 47% of the vote in the Nevada caucus, which up to that point, everyone was saying, his ceiling was 25% or 30%, that he could never really win outright. And the Nevada caucus proved otherwise, and I think that was really a catalyst for the rest of his campaign going forward. And in this state, against the Harry Reid machine, against the Union machine, to even come as close as they did in this state was still a huge victory, even if they came up a little bit short. Let's just assume the vote was all legitimate, assuming that the fact that it was as close as it was closer than anyone thought it was going to be. And Charles Munoz just did an excellent job. He came out of nowhere. I knew who he was before he got involved with the Trump campaign, but a lot of people wouldn't touch Donald Trump. They were scared to death to go anywhere near him or his campaign, fearing their political future. Munoz stepped up and said, "I'll do it," and he's really done himself a great service, and Donald Trump a great service in this state.
All right, I think we need like a Wayne Root, Chuck Muth machine. Let's stop talking about the Harry Reid machine. You and I have to come up with an alternative to this, Chuck. I'm sick of losing. I don't want to lose. I want to win. Like Donald Trump, they only remember number 1. No one remembers number 2. I'm sick of the Harry Reid machine. He's retired a block away from me in Anthem Country Club. He's a stone's throw from my deck. I could actually take a stone and hit his deck. So guess what? I think I'll do it. And I think you and I need to build a machine of our own. We got to stop this because I'm sick of losing. Nevada is a frontier conservative libertarian state, or at least it used to be, and the Californians came in and semi-ruined it. But I think we could still win elections here, and we proved it 2 years ago. Obviously, with all their vaunted machine, they got crushed 2 years ago. So it's still possible for us to win if we could register and bring out the vote. So maybe you and I could do something about it. Last guy on the list, the number 1 guy on your list, I just want to mention real quick, Victor, how do you pronounce his last name? Jokes?
Victor Jakes.
Jakes. He got on that list because, A, he's a great guy. B, he's the Nevada Policy Research Institute, which I love. But most importantly, tell everyone why he made number 1 on that list.
Yeah, he made number 1, and he did absolutely nothing in Nevada last year, and he still made number 1. And the reason, Wayne, is that Victor, and again, he was an absolute soldier for the conservative movement when he was with the Nevada Policy Research Institute. But a year ago, he was deployed overseas to Iraq with the Nevada National Guard and spent the past year out of country serving our nation, defending our rights and our freedoms. And he just came back from his deployment and has been hired by the Las Vegas Review-Journal. He'll be joining you on the pages of the RJ this year as a columnist. And he's just, if you've ever met him, he's a quiet, unassuming guy, but he's just strong as a rock. I mean, just a wonderful, great, solid conservative, and certainly deserves this number 1 position for the sacrifice that he made for all of us this past year.
Quiet and unassuming sounds like he's just like me. A twin of Wayne Root. Perfect. All right. I think this is going to make for a great year in the RJ. Between him and I, we'll have all bases covered. And between him and I and Chuck Muth, we've got Nevada covered for conservatives. Thank you for coming on, Chuck. Thank you for being the keeper of the list. And also, more importantly, the keeper of the tax pledge, the no new tax hike pledge. That's really why I love Chuck Muth. Anyone who doesn't sign that doesn't deserve to be elected in this state. I really don't believe any of us should ever again vote for someone if they won't sign the no tax pledge. Anyway, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Chuck Muth, great having you on. Thanks, buddy. Happy New Year.
Hey, Wayne, Happy New Year to you.
Thank you. Wayne Allyn, War Now. We're going to come back straight ads to the news. And when we come back around that corner, I'm going to take lots of calls. 702-546-4790. 702-546-4790 in California, 844-263-8232. This is War. All right, Wayne Allyn, War Now. Now, some people wait a long time because the timing's off. I have guests. I've got rants. I've got things I got to do and got to talk about that are scheduled in. And some people get lucky because right now I'm about to take Deplorable Gary on the line. He's been waiting over an hour, but the lines are actually relatively open right now. And if you call in, you could get on right away because I'm going to take calls right now. So get on the line right now. 702-546-4790, 546-4790, California, 844-263-8232. And without further ado, Deplorable Gary, the stage is yours. What's on your mind? Happy New Year, my man.
Happy New Year. I love the introduction. I just wish you wouldn't tell everyone in the whole world that I need to go to a 12-step program because I've been hanging on for like over an hour to talk to you. But otherwise, I love you and I love this show. Listen, I don't know where to begin here. Happy New Year. Good gosh. Are you ready? Wayne, are you ready?
For what, the new year?
Yes.
Of course I'm ready.
President Donald Trump.
I'm ready. I've been ready for 8 years for President Donald Trump. I've been ready for 8 years to be rid of Barack Obama. So this will be guaranteed to be a good year. I guarantee you it'll be a good year. Now, will there be ups and downs? Yeah, I hate to burst people's bubble. I've been saying this in all the interviews I do on different shows around the country for the last 2 weeks. Ronald Reagan created the greatest economic turnaround in world history. But first, there were 2 miserable years, really bad years, where people thought he would never win re-election because the economy was horrible for the first 2 years of Reagan. It takes time to turn around a big lumbering ship like the United States. I would be surprised, Gary, if this is a really bad year. But Donald Trump will get it turned around. It just might take a year or 2 years like it did with Reagan. So I'm not promising that this is going to be like a great year or a great instant turnaround because I don't think there is such a thing. I hope Donald Trump proves me wrong.
Well, sir, I hear everything you say, and it's not all Donald Trump. It's you, too, and all these other people, all of them out there, every one of them. Donald Trump's right. He's just one man, and he's like a Superman. But listen, all of us have to pitch in. Now, all I want to say, because I want to give other people a chance. I want to hear from JD and Frank and Brady and a whole bunch of people that I love on this station. I want to say you need to get a lawyer on the radio and ask them why you can't call up live on the radio Catholic Charities and ask them and Salvation Army Family Services why you need a photo ID to get food if you're poor and you're hungry. And Lutheran churches and all these other churches, 80% of them, you have to have a letter in the last 30 days to prove where you live, who you are, and everything else in this state. And every state is different. But
explain to me something.
Saying,
Wait, explain to me something. I understand the photo ID, but a letter to
prove
but a letter to prove where you live. Well, what if you're homeless? You don't have a place where you live. So how would you get food then?
They give you a little bag, a snack bag, and they have more signs in bathrooms than ever because people go in there and live in the bathroom. I've experienced it. We used to go there and watch TV and mix it up and meet different people, see people I haven't seen in a few years. I'm the poorest conservative, but I love this country, and I don't mind being poor because I believe in this country and I believe in myself, and I have no problem with that. What I have a problem with is all this nonsense that you can't have a voter ID. I'm so conservative. I'm too conservative. I want your Social Security cards with a picture of you on it. And I know we don't have the money to do this someday.
Gary, I think we lost you. Somehow you're timed out on your cell phone. Deplorable Gary's a good man. Happy New Year to you, buddy, if you can hear my voice. We've got Haley on line 2. Haley, you're on with W.A.R. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, and you? Sorry.
I'm doing great. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you as well.
What's on your mind?
My mom's a very staunch listener of your radio show, and apparently there was a conversation about Israel earlier, and she told me to call in and kind of explain, I guess, what happened. I study politics and international affairs, so this is an issue that's very important to me. I know that there's a lot of talk, especially right now, with what's happening. In like the most layman terms of the way to put it is the UNSC decided to condemn an Israeli state and the Jewish state by extension and say that Jerusalem was part of a Palestinian territory that is historically relevant, which one is kind of BS considering the fact that the Jewish population and everyone in Israel has been there for thousands of years. But one of the worst things I think to come out of this is the fact that politicians like Bernie Sanders, who everyone loved apparently during the election, who is Jewish and had family members that were killed in the Holocaust, is saying nothing about it.
Right.
And I just think at that level, it's just wrong.
Well, you understand Democrats have abandoned the Jewish people. You know, I'm Jewish. And Democrats have abandoned the Jewish people, have abandoned the Jewish state. You've got the John Kerrys, the Barack Obamas. I think all of them are basically Jew haters. Hillary Clinton, they're all very bad for the Jewish people and for the Jewish state of Israel. They don't stand up for it anymore. I don't know what the reason is, other than the fact that perhaps Hillary and her husband got huge funding at the Clinton Foundation from Muslim countries and Muslim organizations and Muslim billionaires, right? I mean, that certainly plays into it. In Obama's case, who knows where his loyalties lie, but certainly he had a Muslim type of upbringing in Indonesia. So none of them are big lovers of Jews. They don't have a history with Jewish people or the Jewish state of Israel. And they're not on our side anymore, Haley. What can I tell you?
Yeah, and that has gone against American foreign policy since the establishment of a Jewish state, even after World War II.
Right. Well, nobody has ever.
It's very frustrating to see this.
No president has ever abandoned Israel and allowed Israel to be condemned at the UN until Barack Obama in his last days. And one has to ask, why did he wait till the last days? This is when a president, it's New Year's, it's Christmas, your term is up, you've served 2 terms, nobody gets anything done now. Why is it so important to Obama to see that Israel gets condemned now? And I think it's because you're seeing his true colors. This is what he's like, and this is how he thinks at all times. Sad to say.
And I'm very excited, actually, for the Trump administration, because I'm really hoping that President Trump will sit there and actually build an embassy in Jerusalem. Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. Tel Aviv is not the capital. And while, there should be an embassy compared to other states that won't even build an embassy anywhere in Israel, I really hope that Trump and the Senate come together and they either defund the UN and the Palestinian foundations there. Because, I'm not saying all Palestinians are bad. I have some friends that are. They're great people. But the Palestinian Authority, Hamas and Fatah, they're historically terrorist groups. So essentially the United States is sitting there and is now agreeing to the formation of a state funded based on terrorism and then the funding of a terrorist state.
Look, all of it, Haley, all of it's a ridiculous argument. You know why? Because there will be a 2-state solution tomorrow, or there would be tomorrow, if the Palestinians and the Muslims just agreed to Israel's right to exist. But they don't agree to Israel's right to exist. And as long as they don't agree, then there will never be a 2-state solution. So we're arguing over nothing. We're wasting hot air. The Obama administration is wasting hot air. The reality is Israel allows Muslims to exist and Palestinians to exist. They have to agree to allow us to exist. Once they do, there will be peace. You know the old famous saying, right? If Muslims lay down their weapons, there'd be peace in the world. If Jews lay down their weapons, we'd all be dead.
Yep.
That's the story. All right, Haley, thank you. Happy New Year to you. Thank you for calling. Thank you for being a first-time caller. Tell your mom I said hi. All right, turns out her mom, I guess, is a listener of the show and wanted her daughter to call in, and I think that's great. We want more of that. More moms calling in, more kids calling in, more fresh voices calling in, and, of course, we always love our regulars around here. So I appreciate all of you. And we do have the hottest show in the country, and there's a good reason for it, because I have the best listeners in the country, and I love Las Vegas. I'm Wayne Allyn. The show is W.A.R. Now. The station is 790 Talk Now in Vegas, 98.1 FM in Palm Springs. More to come. National syndication beckons, so we will be in many new cities in 2017. It'll be a great new year. President Donald Trump, Obama-free nation. More calls coming up, and James Herson coming up to talk about celebrity news and the death of Debbie Reynolds and her daughter, Carrie Fisher. All of that to come right here on War Now. All right, War Now, Wayne Allyn Root. Happy New Year to all of my wonderful listeners. We've got a guest on the line now, James Herson, who's with us often talking about celebrity news, a New York Times bestselling author, media analyst, law professor. His expertise is in the entertainment industry. And boy, does it seem like, James, we've had a lot of celebrity deaths this year, 2016. Am I on the money with that, or does it just seem that way?
Oh, no. You're on the money. I mean, we've had celebrities on the left who have lined up basically during the campaign to give money, to raise funds, to endorse, to do anything to get their girl Hillary Clinton in office. And then since the election, what we've had is celebrities working hand in hand with people on the left in the mainstream media to fund recounts, to blame the FBI, to blame Vladimir Putin, to attack the Electoral College, to attack individual electors, and now to intimidate and attack anyone who will perform at the inauguration or any of the celebrations around the inauguration. And it's just amazing to me. I mean, with the fact that they would attack the Electoral College, and the mainstream media did the same thing, shows a great disrespect for the legal framework of our country, for the foundational principles of our country. And I guess we should understand that, because the left hates America. They don't understand patriotism. And this inauguration thing is such a shame, because the inauguration is a traditional ceremony that is not political. It has always been a celebration where Americans come together and celebrate, really, the peaceful transition of power. But instead, we have Michael Moore urging protest, George Soros out there calling Trump a would-be dictator. We've got people proudly saying they turned down performing, and people on background telling reporters that they're advising their clients not to perform, and intimidating those that would. You know, Andrea Bocelli is one of the finest human beings walking the earth. Happens to be blind, and God gave him a talent for singing, and his family is friends with the Trump family. And when it was announced that Bocelli was going to perform, all of a sudden these left-wing hating trolls come up on the social media with a new hashtag campaign. It was called Boycott Bocelli. And because of that campaign and other really nasty blogs and things going on, Trump himself went to Bocelli and said, look, you're a friend, you can come to the White House anytime, but I think it's best for you that you don't perform. And then all of a sudden it was publicized that he wasn't going to perform. And this went on with each and every group or individual that said they were going to perform.
I don't get, what I don't get about Hollywood is the country is very evenly divided. We all get that. For every conservative, there's for every Republican, there's a Democrat. For every conservative, there's a liberal. We get that. Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump were very evenly divided. We get that. So every time you say, hey, if you perform for Trump, you'll lose half your audience. But if you're actively against Trump, you could lose half your audience. If you offend Trump supporters, you've lost half your audience. It doesn't make sense that no one cares about the other half. That's, the right wing of the United States. It seems to me, if you offend white males who voted by huge numbers for Donald Trump, you're going to lose half your audience. But no one seems to worry about that.
Well, the smart people in business in Hollywood know that. Samuel Goldwyn famously told filmmakers that if you want to insert messages, send a telegram. Don't put it in the film. Right. And I paraphrase, But the fact is that traditionally in Hollywood, in golden age of Hollywood, when they had actors and actresses under contract, they had a provision, and part of the provision was they weren't supposed to talk about controversy publicly because they're the product and you don't do that. And CEOs of corporations know that. But the people in Hollywood, they can't look at the world without looking at through this left-wing lens, and they think everyone thinks like they do. And, of course, that's not the case, obviously.
Well, they must have been very surprised by Trump's victory then, if they think everyone thinks like them, and they think Trump's the biggest racist and he's Adolf Hitler, and yet he just won the election. They must be absolutely in absolute shock.
Well, not only are they in shock, they're suffering from a psychological condition called ERD, election result denial. And no matter how much Play-Doh and coloring books and pet therapy dogs they get, they can't seem to wrap their arms around it. But one thing that happened, Jackie Evancho, this 16-year-old singer who most Americans know when she was 10 years old, she was a finalist on America's Got Talent. She had this adult voice in a little girl's body. Well, her reps announced she's going to perform the national anthem at Trump's inauguration, and the haters came out usually all over the internet, and they said, "Oh, this is going to hurt your career." But the people had a different way of expressing it. The people who live across the country, outside of Hollywood and Manhattan, and all of a sudden, her album sales went through the roof.
There's my point. There it is. I mean, if you announce to the world you're for Donald Trump and you stand up courageously, you're going to add millions of conservative fans, so you'll lose some liberals. Who cares? You'll become overnight the hero of the right. It seems to me it's idiotic to not be willing to come out and say, I stand with Donald Trump, because there's 50 million people that voted with you.
But there's another factor, and that is, when you're involved in the entertainment business, you want to be able to go to the social gatherings without being a pariah. You want to be accepted. And so that's why, just to give you an idea of how hateful the haters are, it was recently, in the last couple of days, a story broke that the Beach Boys, and they still are, they've confirmed they've been asked to perform at the inauguration, and they're considering it. And the guy who runs the Beach Boys today, his name is Mike Love, ironically. And Mike Love, all of a sudden, Mike Love is the object of hate. Listen to this. The mainstream media starts attacking the Beach Boys. I dare say if you walk in a room full of people and you say, hey, does anybody here hate the Beach Boys? Nobody will raise their hand. Everybody loves the Beach Boys.
Right.
But the Rolling Stone called the current iteration of the Beach Boys Loves, meaning Mike Loves, quote, Frankenstein monster of a band. This is their response to the fact that the Beach Boys may be playing. The Huffington Post, voice of the left, said that Mike Love, quote, always has tried to steer the band toward its lowest common denominator tendencies of surf songs, close quote. And people go to a Beach Boys concert, what do they want to hear?
Surf songs.
Surf songs.
Right.
But anyway, it's just, now Mike Love, longtime right-of-center Republican, Brian Johnston, longtime Republican, and it's unforgivable. He's done the unforgivable sin of being Republican in public. But he's been very smart because they haven't come out and said whether they are or they aren't. I think we're going to see a surprise at the inauguration. I think the Beach Boys will perform. There's rumors that Kid Rock, Ted Nugent, Lee Greenwood, and I'm sure there's a lot of country stars that supported Trump. Loretta Lynn's one. And I think it's going to be a tremendously powerful and beautiful inauguration. And the people that support Trump could really care less if Beyonce or Jay-Z or Elton John perform.
Right.
They're looking for the substance of the policies that Trump stood for, and they already are excited by the jobs he's bringing before he ever gets in office. This is unprecedented,
Well, I hope it'll be a great group, like you said, because I will be there. I'm on the friends and family list of Donald Trump, the president-elect, and he just sent me my invitation to the inauguration and the actual presidential ball as a friend of Trump. And so I will be there. So I hope he gets a great group of celebrities. I know he will. Great group of performers. I know he will. We'll all be greatly entertained. If I know Donald Trump, it'll be one of the great parties of all time. We're going to take a quick break. Will you stay with us through the break?
Sure.
I'd like to talk about all the deaths of celebrities that have happened in Hollywood this year, and also of late, the tragedy of Debbie Reynolds passing away just 24 hours after her daughter, Carrie Fisher. A terrible thing, a sad thing, tragic thing, but also a touching thing. A mom who just couldn't live without her daughter is what it seems like. So her heart just gave out. She couldn't take it. Let's talk about it all with James Herson, who is our entertainment expert, who's on the show often. We'll be right back with James. Wayne Allyn Root, War Now. All right. I do get satisfaction. I hope you get it from this show. War Now. I'm Wayne Allyn Root, and I get my entertainment satisfaction. We get our entertainment expert on. James Herson, New York Times bestselling author, media analyst, law professor, expertise in the entertainment industry. I believe, I don't have it in front of me, but I believe your website, James, is jamesherson.com. Is that right?
Yes, it is, and I write for Newsmax.com, and I'm on all the social media. They can look me up, Hirsen, James, on Twitter, Facebook, anywhere else.
All right, so unless I'm crazy, there's been a lot of deaths this year. It seems to me a lot more than usual, but you tell me whether it just looks that way, because so many of them have kind of been, kind of glopped together at the last minute, like Debbie Reynolds and her daughter, Carrie Fisher. Hasn't this been a year with a lot of celebrity deaths? Seems like it.
Oh, it's a record year. I mean, it's all over the social media. People are writing, I can't wait for 2016 to end. We forget, Prince died this year. Alan Thicke, Florence Henderson, of course, Debbie Reynolds and Carrie Fisher. But it just goes on and on. I mean, David Bowie earlier in the year, Glenn Frey from the Eagles. Music really got hit hard this year. And maybe it has something to do with the aging baby boomers to some extent. But then there were older stars. Zsa Zsa just died. George Kennedy. Do you know George Kennedy died earlier this year? He was 91.
I remember him from the airplane movies, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And Keith Emerson of Emerson, Lake and Palmer died. Merle Haggard, the great country singer. Alan Young from Mr. Ed, he was 96. Patty Duke, Muhammad Ali. It's just, 2016 took a record number of celebrities. There's too many, actually, to name, but it just went throughout the year. And I saw somebody post recently a post that said, shocking news, Keith Richards was found alive.
Exactly. I knew you were going to say
play
that.
The Rolling Stones, and Keith Richards, they always say that, his medical report 5 years ago said he died of natural causes. So it's kind of like Weekend at Bernie's with him. But
I think he's been mummified by drug use. I think it's kept him alive, right?
Could be. This year, Robert Vaughn from The Man from U.N.C.L.E. died.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's just a massive. And what it shows us, I guess, celebrity deaths are no different than anybody dying. George Michael just died. He was 53 years old. What it shows us is that life is a gift from God, and that we have to appreciate every moment as a gift and realize that we're only here by the grace of God, and at any time we're called to our reward. And the older we get, the more likely that can happen, but it can happen even at a young age. Like Carrie Fisher was only 60, George Michael 53, Debbie Reynolds was 84, and she did appear. I mean, they haven't told us the actual cause of death, but I've seen so many articles calling it a death by broken heart.
Yeah, pretty clear.
And that she just couldn't live with that. And they had a beautiful relationship together. We're actually in a Broadway show together, and always seem to be appearing together at red carpet events. So it's tough, but it's part of something we have to accept in life, that there is an end like that, and we tend not to appreciate people until they're gone.
The one that affected me the most, funny enough, out of all of those great names and music superstars was Alan Thicke. And I guess it's because, I've never been a musician, but Alan Thicke was more of kind of a game show host, talk show host, which is what I am. And we kind of have the similar look, and he seemed about my age range, even though I'm a little younger. He looked fantastic. I mean, he was a great-looking guy, even at the age of, what, he was like 68 when he died, something like that?
Yeah, he was. He was still very youthful. and actually a very talented personality, and best known for the sitcom Growing Pains.
Best known for Growing Pains, but he did all kinds of things the average person doesn't know. Very few people remember that he took a run at Johnny Carson. He had a late night TV show for like 5 minutes. I think it was like 4 months. But the reason he got that was because I believe he was the leading late night talk show host of Canada long before he ever came to America.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So a lot of people didn't know that about him. And I started my career as a guy going out for game shows and talk shows. Merrill Heater, the great Hollywood game show producer, picked me out of hundreds of people to be the new host of Gambit. They were going to bring Gambit back. And my fans don't know, I was chosen to be the host of Gambit. Unfortunately, ABC at the last minute decided not to pick it up. But if they had, I would have been the new host of Gambit. So I've got that kind of background.
You might have been handling Jeopardy now.
I might have been. Very well might have been.
Allyn Thicke was a musician. He actually wrote a number of the game show themes.
Yes, I read that. Yes.
And he also sang vocally introductions to themes. He wrote the themes to Different Strokes. Remember that sitcom?
Yes, of course.
And The Facts of Life. And so, he actually made a good living.
I bet he did.
From the residuals of those theme songs. So, yeah, he's definitely a Renaissance man. No doubt about it.
Here in Las Vegas, just to show you the kind of money these people make with something nobody thinks about. So I've got a beautiful home here in Vegas, and my next-door neighbor, I'm one of the few men in the world who can brag that I've never seen my next-door neighbor because he's never been there in 15 years. He bought his house the same time I bought mine, right next to me, and he's one of the richest men in all of Asia, and he is the Burt Bacharach of Asia. He's written 3,000 hit songs for famous Chinese musicians, but he doesn't sing them, he writes them. And he's so wealthy that he owned the house next to me, and it's a mansion, and he owned it for 15 years, James, and he never showed up. And one day I asked his manager, who was showing up to get the mail, why is he never here? Why have I never had a human being next to me for 15 years? What's the point of buying a multi-million-dollar mansion? And her answer was, he just wants to tell his friends he owns a piece of Las Vegas. And I said, you haven't even heard the punchline yet. I said, so he's willing to spend like $5 million to own a piece of Las Vegas? That's amazing. And she said, well, he also owns a $25 million mansion in Laguna on the beach, and he's never been there either. How's that for money? Now, that's rich. When people talk about rich is when you can own homes all over the world just to tell people you own them, but you never get a chance to actually ever go there yourself. That's rich.
Yeah, he probably thought, well, someday I'll visit.
I'm sure that's what he thought.
But yeah.
But I brought that up only because Allyn Thicke wrote theme songs, and my neighbor wrote all these songs for famous musicians, and the average person doesn't realize the person who wrote, the opening song for a famous talk show, a game show, or a song makes as much or more money than the actual singer, especially if the singer had one hit song and you've written 20 hit songs. You're much richer than the performer. And a lot of people don't think about that.
Especially if the song is used for a theme show. You know that one of the interesting stories is Paul Anka wrote the theme for the old Tonight Show. Da, 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 da.
I never knew that.
Da, 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 da. That's Paul Anka. Paul Anka made, back in those days, it was a lot of money. He made an extra $50,000 a year just from that one piece of a song being played, of course, on weeknights every night.
Right.
But only for, a short time, maybe 15 seconds. But yeah, he made that, and
that show was on the air. That song was on the air with that show for how many years?
For 25 years.
So he made over $1 million for that. Well over $1 million for that.
Oh, sure, just for the one too.
Yeah. Hey, listen. Even in today's dollars, I wouldn't mind an extra $50,000 a year for a song, that has nothing to do with me. So great job to have. If you could say that I write theme songs for game shows and talk shows. But anyway, Allyn Thicke affected me a little bit because he always reminded me of the career that I'm in, and he always seemed like a great guy. And kind of aspired to be in his role. So, and I was always, about 20 years younger than him in Hollywood. So I always took note of his success. And it was a little bit freaky to hear he died. So all of us get affected by someone who reminds us kind of either of the time we've lived in or live in, or reminds us of us. And Debbie Reynolds' death bothered me only because I lost my mom and dad 32 days apart from cancer. And it was a rough month. Let me tell you. That's wait a minute. I even said it wrong. Wait a minute. I just said 32. Did I say 32 days?
You
28
did.
days apart from cancer. Excuse me. I don't know why 32 was on my mind, but it was less than a month. It was 28 days apart of cancer. And so when you hear a mom dies and a daughter dies 24 hours apart, there's more to the story. There's a family that's just absolutely in so much pain behind it that you can't even recognize what they must be going through. So I can't imagine the grandchildren and the children of Carrie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds and the great-grandchildren maybe that she has, what shock they're in right now to lose two people in such a short period of time. I felt it. I've been there, you know.
Yeah, and there is no answer, but the only place to turn is faith.
That's it.
That's all there is. And family and friends, of course.
I'm glad to hear you believe in faith. Are you a Christian, I gather?
I am.
Very good. All right.
I taught for 15 years at a Christian institution, Biola University, and I taught at a Christian law school in Orange County, Trinity Law School. So I've had the privilege of having freedom of speech as I taught American law.
How does a guy go from lawyer to religion to entertainment gossip? I mean, that's a combination that's only you, James Herson. Nobody else in the world. You're it.
Well, it gets more complicated because I used to be a professional musician, and I toured with R&B groups and played in the studio. I toured for 2 years with the Temptations.
Really?
So I've been in various aspects of the entertainment business all my life.
Got it. All right. Well, very cool. It's nice to know someone who's been in the entertainment business takes religion and Christianity seriously. It's a good thing to hear. And I appreciate it. I'm sure my listeners do, too. And we appreciate all the news you bring us about the entertainment business from time to time. So thank you for all of that. And Happy New Year, my friend James Herson.
Happy New Year, Wayne. And we're looking forward optimistically to the new administration and their policies being implemented.
Yes, sir. And you can find him, by the way, at jamesherson.com. That's HIRSEN, jamesherson.com. And any new books coming out that we can let people know about?
None right now, just projects, cooking and not finished yet.
All right. Well, we wish you great luck with those projects on the burner in 2017. Happy New Year, my friend.
All right. Happy New Year, Wayne. Have a beautiful New Year's.
Thank you. James Herson, great guy. All the latest entertainment news. Wayne Allyn brings you all kinds of fun stuff, not just pure politics, because you know what? The election's over, so we got to branch out a little bit and expand your horizons. When we come back, we'll take calls. We've already got callers waiting, and we will take more. 702-546-4790. And California, I want to hear from you. I'm going to scold you, Palm Springs. Get on the line. 844-263-8232, 844-263-8232. And this will be the last time you get to talk to me till 2017. Tomorrow will be a best of Wayne. And then comes the new year. So this is our last 10 minutes of 2016 together. Wayne Allyn, War Now. All right, Wayne Allyn. That is a strange song. Where do you get that song from? Get me U2. Get me, you know who I like? I like Bon Jovi. Get me Bon Jovi. Who was that, by the way? Who sings that song? Walls of Jericho. All right. All right, so we've got lots of callers. We've got Ellie on line 2. Ellie, you're on with WAR. How are you?
Good. I'm doing pretty good. How are you, WAR?
I'm doing good. You wanted to talk about the Washington, D.C. inauguration trip.
I think it's a fantastic trip. I bought mine in November, and Sunday I got extremely sick, and I haven't got better. So if somebody wants a fantastic price, they can call 702-606-4422, 702-606-4422. They don't want to miss out on this if they want to call.
All right, Ellie. Thank you for the call. Appreciate it. We've got Moisha on line 1. Moisha, you're on with Wayne Allyn.
Yeah, when people pass away, we say the Kaddish in Judaism, and you had 30 days after the death. It's unbelievable. It makes you're a strong person, and your parents are really proud of you, Wayne. They see everything you do.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
There's so much to say. I'm looking at the Hanukkah lights, Maccabees. There's so much history. There's other callers. I'm calling you out, Obama. I'm calling you out. You're not very smart. I could out. When times people's true colors come out, So over 2,000 years ago, the Maccabees won a victory in Israel. 100 years later, the Romans, we fought the Romans, all the evil empires, and then we were banished from our land. And we didn't fight. We were peaceful people. Wherever we went, we were a blessing, not just the economics, but in everything. America's been the greatest country for us, and Jews have helped America also. How dare you, Obama, when the true colors come out? You love dictators, Obama. You love thugs. You're the guy who said you'd bring a gun to a knife fight. Who in the world takes a gun to a knife fight, doesn't allow other people for a gun? Obama, you are not very smart. How dare you? How dare you? Do you understand if the Israeli army doesn't work one day since 1948? If somebody tries to steal your house, Wayne, Kerry said the UN vote. Well, the Arabs rejected that vote, and on May 14th, 1948, 6 armies simultaneously invaded. It was a miracle in 1948. And they were also the Maccabees, the Israeli army now. And again in 1967 when they invaded. And there's so much more to say, but people, you should understand, the Arabs living in that territory, not only Israel proper in 48, where they're the only Arabs who vote in a democracy, they have own people in the Knesset, there's no other democracy in the Middle East for Arabs. Arab Muslims, they've destroyed all the Arab Christians there, by the way, in the Middle East. But then in the territories after 67, Wayne, 98% of the people didn't have flushing toilets or running water. They have universities. Their economics are so much better in East Jerusalem itself, and Jerusalem itself, of course, right after the war. And of course, conditions were better, relations were better right after the war of 67 between the Arabs and the Jews, by the way. They propagandized their children. And only Israel can make peace. It's the only place where women have rights, freedom of religion, and everything else. And the holy places, you Christians, people out there, you should visit Israel. And just know that those holy places, when Israel took control in 67, they were magnificent. They protect them, and they were not protected. And how dare you, Obama? Just let me finish with this. Obama, if you go through history, those who come against the Jewish people are the worst. They're the worst. They're the anti-progressive forces, Roman Empire, Nazis, dictators. We could go down the list.
Egypt. Don't forget Egypt and the Emperor of Egypt. But there's another thing. Hey, Moshe, there's one thing you're leaving out. The enemies of Israel are not only the worst people, the worst villains in history, the most evil people in history, but they always get theirs in the end. They always lose. No one has ever outlasted the Jews. In the end, you kill a few of us, but in the end, you're the one who meets an untimely death, and we're the ones who move on in life, and as they say, l'chaim, who enjoy life. So you don't meet with a very good end when you go against God's wishes and you fight the Jewish people. I would say that.
Reb Wayne Allyn, thank you so much, Wayne. I'll let you get to your other call.
All right, Moshe, thank you. Happy New Year, buddy. All right, we've got Steve on line 2. Steve, you're on with W.A.R.
Hey, Wayne, this is Steve from Henderson, just checking in with you guys.
You're the last call of 2016.
Great.
Last one.
Beautiful,
you get the record. You got 1 minute. You're on the clock, baby.
All right. I want everybody to go onto YouTube. There's a video. I'll give you the link. I'll send you the email. There's a video up on Hillary Clinton. Did you know that when Bill Clinton was the governor of Arkansas, Hillary Clinton was the only woman on the board of directors for Walmart Corporation? And ever since then, her and the whole Walden company they all been in bed together. And if anybody thinks Hillary Clinton's pro-union, just watch this video. I shocked so many of union friends of mine, blew them away. I had one guy wanted to put a bullet in the TV set. Like it. I'll email you the link when I get home.
Hey, Steve, Hillary's just pro-Hillary. That's all the Clintons care about are the Clintons. They don't care about unions. They don't care about black people. They don't care about unions. They don't care about Hispanics. They don't care about anything gays. They care about the Clintons and their money and their bank account. That's all they're about. You know that.
Yeah, it's the best video I've ever seen on her.
All right, Steve. Happy New Year, buddy. Thank you for calling in. Thank you to all the callers of this show. What a great year it's been. I started this show on February, I believe, 7th, either the 6th or the 7th of this year, and how this show has exploded and how this show has grown from 1 hour to 2 hours to 3 hours to afternoon drive time to the most advertisers, I believe, any show in Las Vegas, and just skyrocketing ratings. And now, hopefully, you will hear news in the very beginning of January about national syndication. Lots of good things happening because we got a great audience, and you have helped make this a very successful show. I can't thank you enough. I wish you all a Happy New Year. I hope you all had a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays. I wish all the policemen and the first responders out there and all the military out there a safe New Year. Take care of yourself. May God bless you. And I'll see you all in the new year. It'll be Best of Wayne tomorrow. Great weekend. Best of Wayne over the weekend. Best of Wayne on Monday, because I'll be home watching the bowl games, baby. And then Tuesday, I'm back in full force every day right here, 3 to 6. God bless. Love you. Happy New Year. 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 Love you. Happy New Year.